The courtroom was deathly silent as the judge's gavel came down hard, delivering a verdict that shattered Officer Michael Carter's life. Guilty, an exclamation that reverberated through the hall, casting an irreversible shadow over the decorated officer's career. A career built over 15 years on the force, now reduced to ashes. Michael sat handcuffed, his head bowed, staring at the floor. Despite his repeated claims of innocence, the jury had ruled against him. He was certain that the evidence against him had been planted, but the weight of the sentence was not what crushed him most. It was the thought of leaving behind his loyal K-9 partner, Luke. Luke, a German shepherd, sat near the back of the courtroom, his sharp gaze locked on Michael. He had been more than a partner. He was Michael's constant companion, sharing life-or-death moments on the streets. Memories flooded Michael's mind, training sessions, late-night patrols, and the bond they had forged. Now, in the final moments of a life that seemed so unjust, the thought of never seeing Luke again was unbearable. As the judge rose to leave, Michael's voice broke the tense silence. "Your Honor," he called out, his heart racing. "I have one last request. Please let me say goodbye to Luke." A murmur rippled through the gallery, and even the judge paused, studying Michael for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. 3 minutes. The courtroom, once a sight of despair, transformed as Luke was released. The dog sprinted towards Michael, claws clicking on the floor, embodying unwavering loyalty. Michael dropped to his knees, pulling Luke into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry, buddy," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I let you down. I won't be there anymore," Luke whimpered, nuzzling into Michael's chest, radiating warmth and love. But then something changed. Luke's body tensed, and his nose began to work furiously against Michael's jacket. He tugged at the fabric, barking sharply. The sudden sound broke the courtroom's solemn stillness, drawing every eye in attendance. "What's the dog doing?" the judge asked, frowning. Luke pulled harder, barking again. One of the officers near Michael approached cautiously, beginning to check his jacket. The tension in the room mounted to a suffocating level. Then, with a metallic clink, a small object fell to the floor. A recording device. The prosecutor's face went pale. "This doesn't prove anything," he snapped, trying to regain control of the moment. But Luke's alert stance remained resolute. The truth was all too evident. The recording mattered. "Officer, activate that device," the judge ordered. The officer fumbled with the recorder, fingers trembling as he pressed play. A static-filled crackle filled the room, followed by muffled voices. Everyone leaned forward, straining to hear. Then the words hit like a bombshell. "Just plant the evidence. No one's going to question it. Carter's clean record makes him the perfect scapegoat. Get it done." Gasps erupted around the courtroom. Michael's heart nearly stopped before roaring back to life. He knew that voice. That was Captain Ray Harding, his former supervisor, a man he had respected. "That's enough," the prosecutor blurted, rushing toward the officer holding the recorder, but the judge slammed his gavel down, his voice commanding. "Sit down." Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. The recording revealed everything. How the evidence had been planted and how he had been framed. Luke, still at Michael's side, emitted a low growl, echoing his partner's silent fury. "This trial is not over," the judge declared, his expression dark as he addressed the room. "Bailiffs, escort the defendant back to holding. Officers, secure that device as new evidence. We're reopening this case." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered within Michael's chest as he was led away from the courtroom. He turned back for one last look at Luke, silently promising his partner that he wouldn't let this injustice stand. Days later, inside the cold holding cell, Michael sat on the hard bench, staring blankly at the wall, his mind racing. The recording was his lifeline, but Captain Harding's betrayal stung deeply. How far did this corruption reach? Meanwhile, in the judge's chambers, tension ran high. The judge replayed the recording, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the gravity of Captain Harding's words. Summon Captain Harding to my office immediately, he ordered the intercom. Outside the courtroom, Harding had been anxiously waiting, ensuring that Michael's sentencing went smoothly, at least for his nefarious designs. When the bailiff approached him with the summons, panic flickered across his face. He adjusted his tie nervously and followed the officer down the hall. Once in the chambers, Harding attempted to maintain his composure. "You called for me, Your Honor." His voice remained steady despite the tension in the air. The judge leaned forward, tapping the recorder with his finger. "Care to explain this?" Harding's facade faltered, but he quickly masked it with confusion. "I'm not sure what you mean, Your Honor." The judge pressed play again, and the damning voices filled the room. Harding's face drained of color, but he attempted to recover. "Your Honor, this is absurd. That could be anyone," he stammered. "I don't think so," the judge interrupted sharply. "I act on evidence, and this," he gestured toward the recorder, "is evidence of a crime. Multiple crimes, in fact." Before Harding could respond, two bailiffs stepped into the room, and as they approached him, panic washed over his features. "What are you doing?" Harding demanded, his voice rising in alarm. "You're being detained for questioning," the judge said firmly. "Until we get to the bottom of this, you're a suspect in the obstruction of justice and falsifying evidence." As the bailiffs led a protesting Harding away, the judge leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. The web of corruption was unraveling fast, and Michael Carter's story was far from over. Still in his cell, Michael remained unaware of the storm brewing outside. All he could think about was Luke, the steadfast K-9 who had uncovered the device. He wondered, if Luke were so instinctual, what else might he discover? Luke was taken to the K-9 unit for evaluation, and Officer Sarah Mitchell, one of Michael's closest colleagues, volunteered to care for the dog. Luke seemed fidgety, pacing his kennel and barking periodically. "He knows something's wrong," Sarah murmured, peering through the bars. As she watched, Luke pressed his nose up against her jacket, sniffing intently. Uncertainty gripped her stomach. Was it related to Michael's case? Slowly, she opened the kennel door. "Okay, boy, let's see what you're trying to tell us." She led Luke to Michael's locker in the department's storage room, and instantly, the dog began sniffing and pawing at the lower compartment. Sarah's heart raced as she unlocked it, finding a small, unmarked envelope hidden beneath Michael's uniforms. Pulling it out, she opened it to reveal grainy photographs. They depicted Captain Harding meeting with a known criminal, accompanied by a document outlining transactions that implicated Harding in a bribery scheme tied to the very case that had led to Michael's arrest. "Luke, you just found the smoking gun," Sarah whispered, her heart pounding. Realizing the magnitude of what she'd uncovered, Sarah immediately contacted the judge's office. Within the hour, the evidence was in the judge's hands. His expression darkened as he reviewed the documents. If these are accurate, Michael Carter isn't just innocent. He's a victim of a department-wide cover-up, he asserted. The judge ordered an emergency hearing, sending shockwaves through the precinct. Whispers of corruption spiraled through the hallways as officers who had previously testified against Michael began to squirm, knowing their involvement might come under scrutiny. Back in his cell, Michael was called unexpectedly. The commotion ignited a pulse of hope within him. He was escorted to a secure room where Sarah waited, alongside the judge. As soon as Michael spotted the folder of evidence in Luke, proudly sitting by Sarah's side, his heart swelled with mixed emotions of hope and disbelief. "This just came in," the judge said, sliding the documents toward Michael. "It proves Harding's corruption and, most importantly, that the evidence used to convict you was fabricated." Michael flipped through the files, his hands trembling at the sight of the photos and records, detailing how Harding manipulated the case against him. The judge nodded firmly. "It means you're going free. But this isn't over yet. There's much more to uncover, and we'll need your help." Michael knelt down, pulling Luke into a grateful embrace. "You saved me, boy. You saved me again." As they prepared to launch into investigations against the remaining corrupt officials, Michael felt the weight of his mission settle firmly on his shoulders. He was determined to expose the entire conspiracy. Stepping out of the courthouse as a free man, reporters clamored, but Michael's focus was solely on Luke. The sight of his loyal K-9 partner brought comfort amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, inside the courthouse, the judge had convened a special task force to investigate the corruption. Sarah was now an integral part of the team leading the charge. "We need your help," Sarah said, catching up to Michael outside the courthouse. "No one knows this department better than you." Michael hesitated, jaw tightening. He had spent years trusting the badge. Now that trust felt shattered. Yet as he looked down at Luke, the dog's calm, determined eyes reminded him of his motivations for joining the force in the first place. "I'm in," Michael finally said. "But I'm not doing this for the department. I'm doing it for the truth." The investigation began in earnest. Sarah and Michael worked tirelessly, piecing together timelines, cross-referencing cases, and interviewing officers who had worked closely with Harding. Some were willing to cooperate, while others stonewalled them, raising more suspicions. One night, while combing through a stack of old case files, Sarah discovered a list of names, including officers, local politicians, and criminals linked to suspicious payments and unsolved crimes. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous the operation, revealing yet another layer of treachery. "If this is as big as it looks, we can't handle this alone," Michael said grimly. "Not yet," Sarah responded cautiously. "If we take this to the FBI now and it leaks, the whole operation could scatter. We need something definitive." The atmosphere grew heavier with every document they reviewed. During one late-night session, Luke began to pace, showing signs of restlessness before suddenly standing erect, ears perked forward and growling softly. "What is it, boy?" Michael asked, stepping closer. Without warning, the lights in the conference room flickered and went out completely. Darkness engulfed them. Michael's skin prickled with alarm. "That's not a power outage," Sarah said in a hushed tone. Breaking glass shattered the silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching the door. "We're not alone," Michael whispered. "Stay low," Sarah urged. Luke tensed, moving close to Michael's side, ready for whatever danger awaited them. As the footsteps grew louder, Michael and Sarah prepared for the imminent threat. The door suddenly burst open, and chaos erupted. A shadowed figure stepped into the room, weapon drawn. Luke lunged fiercely, clamping his jaws onto the intruder's arm. The man screamed, trying to shake Luke off as he dropped his weapon. "Don't move," Michael shouted, aiming his weapon at a second figure rushing through the doorway. The intruder froze, hands raised, but their posture indicated they were poised for an attack. Sarah quickly grabbed her radio to call for backup, her voice steady despite the situation. Michael edged closer to the first man, demanding answers. Just then, more deafening sounds reverberated through the space. Tear gas canisters were thrown into the room, filling it with thick, acrid smoke. "Out of time!" Sarah yelled. "We need to move." With a sharp whistle, Michael commanded Luke to retreat to his side. They fought through the smoke, ducking low to avoid the gas as they charged out the emergency exit into a dark alley behind the building. Gunfire erupted as they burst through the door, bullets pinging off nearby walls. Michael's heartbeat thundered in his ears while he guided Sarah and Luke to safety. Finally, hearing sirens in the distance invigorated him, but they understood they needed to press forward. In the ensuing days, news of corruption erupted across the nation. Sarah had delivered files to a trusted journalist, creating a tempest that brought down the previously untouchable network of corruption. Michael was hailed as a hero, yet he brushed off the spotlight, his focus on protecting those he served with, aiming to restore honor to the badge. Standing on the porch of his home, Michael watched Luke play in the yard, their bond fortified by shared hardship. "We did it, buddy," he said softly, kneeling to scratch behind Luke's ears, feeling peace wash over him. "It's over now." Luke wagged his tail, eyes bright and steady in their newfound freedom. Michael was acutely aware that they had fought not only for his vindication, but for justice, for those silenced, betrayed, and forever overlooked. And as Michael beheld the sun setting on the horizon while Luke chased after a ball, he realized they were embarking on a new chapter. Together, they were more than partners. They were symbols of resilience and loyalty, ready to confront whatever awaited in the future together. It was a fresh canvas awaiting the brush of their choices, filled with potential adventures grounded in the purity of truth and the unbreakable bond they shared. As the shadows of the past began to recede, Michael found a sense of peace that had once felt so far away. Life with Luke was a testament to the strength found in genuine companionship, forever unyielding, forever vigilant.